The next example we're going to do is going to be another quadratic equation that we're going to solve by using completing the square. Here though we have a coefficient that's not 1 in front of my x squared. Now, if that's the case, you can complete the square. I could factor out the 3 to the side and go through that process. I'm going to do a little bit of a shortcut here. I've got 3x squared minus 6x plus 12. All of those, because it's an equation and equals 0, I can divide by 3 on both sides. Now what I get is x squared minus 2x plus 4 equals 0. Now, that won't always work. Sometimes you might have to do this process using the completing the square and factor out that 3 and go from there. If, for instance, if this was an 11 instead of 12 and you couldn't divide a 3 out, you would have to do that. I went ahead and did this shortcut just to make my life easier. Now from here I'm going to go ahead and complete the square. So I've got a 1x squared plus 4 equals 0. Again, just give myself some space. I'm going to take negative 2 divided by 1, or excuse me, negative 2 divided by 2, and then square it. And that becomes negative 1 squared, which is 1. If I add 1 to the equation, I need to subtract 1. And then from here now I can complete the square. So negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. I've got x minus 1 quantity squared, plus 4 minus 1 is just plus 3, equals 0. So I've completed the square, but because it's an equation that I'm solving, I can divide that 3 out. If this was something where I was writing the equation of that line, it was y equals y, then I can't do that. But here, I can. I'm going to move over the 3. I've got my binomial that's being squared. I'm going to go ahead and take the square root of both sides. And when I do that, I have to add the plus or minus. Anytime I add a square root, I've got to add a plus or minus. So that leaves me x minus 1 equals plus or minus the square root of negative 3. Now, I didn't write this up here, but in your assignments, you're going to be solving these over complex numbers, which means if we have a negative underneath the square root, we need to take out an I. So I'm going to go ahead and solve for x. I'm going to move the 1 over. 1 plus or minus the square root of negative 3. The only reducing I can do is to take out that I. And that's all I can do. And again, if I had put this or this into the quadratic formula, this would be my answer.